grew up on a farm, and so there were plenty of things outdoors to do. I started playing rugby again. I'd had a break, and then I came back to it. 2 months after that, they made my role redundant.
Oh, no. I know what that's like.
You do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I look back as a blessing. My wife decided I needed to do something. She found me a course, local Polytech, a brand new course, a sport and coaching diploma. Then I started coaching, and then I had an opportunity to go overseas and coach rugby, and got a job in Canada. Took the family. They were kids were 6, 9 and 11, I think. Packed up and went to Canada for 2.5 years. Just had a ball. Absolutely loved it. So what I used to do when I was coaching rugby is if I was explaining a drill, I'd explain the drill and then I would get the players to repeat it back to me. What did you hear? Oh, this is what I heard you say. I haven't been that articulate. I reckon a great strategy a leader can do is meet with their direct report every single week for 5 or 10 minutes and ask 3 questions. What did you enjoy about last week? What are you working on this week? And how can I help you do your job better? Leaders did that. Simple strategy. It's a game changer.
Key traits of an elite athlete that leaders could adopt.
We talk about this: resilience, discipline, coachability, focus. For me to be a champion is if I am better today than I was yesterday, I am winning because I'm competing against myself, not anybody else.
Welcome to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. What if the key to becoming a great leader wasn't just about strategy or skill, but it's about thinking like an athlete? Today we're diving into the mindset, resilience, and teamwork that separates managers and true leaders with someone who's lived it both on the field and in the boardroom. Welcome to a conversation with leadership with a coach and former elite rugby coach, Andy Rolston. Andy helps managers step up, and become kind leaders people actually want to follow. His journey began in the world of sports, where he coached rugby teams internationally and gained first-hand experience in building trust and developing resilience and creating high-performing teams. Over the years, he has applied these lessons to leadership development, working with managers who strive to go beyond simply managing tasks and that they want to lead with confidence and influence. Andy believes that leadership is much like sport. It's driven by mindset, strategy, and teamwork. Most effective leaders think like athletes. They embrace challenges, push through setbacks, and focus on continuous growth. In this discussion, he explores how adopting athletes' mindset can transform leadership, helping managers navigate pressure and foster a culture of success within the organization. Let's welcome Andy to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. Welcome, Andy.
Hi, thanks. Nice to be here, Anthony.
Yeah. Before we kick into the questions, I just want to say to our viewers and listeners, today we're coming from the Crate in Albany, in Auckland. The Crate is Albany's premier co-working space located at 28 Constellation Drive, Rosedale, just a minute from the motorway and Northern Express bus station. The Crate offers flexible office solutions tailored to your needs, enjoys ergonomic workstations, private suites, and state-of-the-art meeting rooms, just like this one that we're coming from today. Equipped with the latest video conferencing technology, our vibrant community fosters networking and collaboration, complemented by amenities like barista quality coffee, massage chairs, and welcoming business lounge. And I believe, Andy, you are part of the networking group called The Gathering here as well?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. So it's an experience, a workspace designed for productivity and connection at the Crate. And I'm so grateful that the Crate has offered me the space to host this podcast going forward. So let's get back to Andy. Tell us a little bit about your journey in life, the childhood, the present moment. What were some of the highlights and challenges that you went through, and how did you navigate them?
Start from a childhood. I am one of 6 boys, and so you can imagine growing up in a household with boys, it was pretty chaotic for my mother. And loved that kind of period when I was young, boys just wrestling and having fights and stuff and that boys do. But it was good. We grew up on a farm, and so there were plenty of things outdoors to do. And, we would go off to the back of the farm all day, and as long as we're back for dinner, Mum was okay with it, right? You wouldn't do that sort of stuff today, right? So you look back and think, wow, would I let my children do that? No, I wouldn't do that. But the world was a different place back then, and we, we were able to entertain ourselves. We didn't have devices and things, and so you made your own fun, which was great. So yeah, school. I didn't really like school. I was good at sport, and so when I went to high school, I used to. I say I only went to school to eat my lunch and play sport because I wasn't academically great. I was average, and part of that was, I think, no one really taught you at school how to study and how to do stuff, how to write assignments or essays and things. And so, if you don't know how to do that, you really struggle. And so I think that's why I struggled. But I was good at sport and I love sport. So I would look for any opportunity when it came to a sports day or school exchanges to, if it wasn't rugby, which is my winter sport, tennis is my summer sport. If they weren't on the menu, I would pick another sport to get on a school team, whether it was badminton or whatever. And so, it's anything for a day off school, right? That was kind of schooling, and I couldn't wait to leave school. I really, it was like 15 and I was ready to leave, which you could do back then. I actually wanted to be a mechanic, so went around looking for, or a friend of mine took me around a whole lot of garages where I grew up and live in Palmerston North, and approached garages looking for an apprenticeship. Couldn't find anything, had to go back to school. So that was my fifth form year. I think, what do they call it? Year, was it 10 or something? So I went back, had to go back to school to the year 11, which was sixth form, we called it. Found an apprenticeship a week in. So I had a week at school, left, started an apprenticeship as a mechanic. And so that was great, loved it. Yeah. And then moved on from there. I think I was a mechanic for about 10 years. I think I got sick of that. And there seems to be a cycle in my life, right? There's a period of 7 to 10 years, and then I need some change. I get bored.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating when I look back. But did some mechanicking, got married, met my wife, and moved to Tauranga and got married and worked there. And then, interestingly, went into the company called Data Bank, which was a clearinghouse for the major banks in New Zealand, BNZ, Westpac, National, and ANZ. And we used to process all their payments, checks, and things like that. So I started off as a computer operator on shift work. So it was pretty interesting, actually. And then a company, EDS, bought them out, and then they closed the branch down in Tauranga, moved to Wellington. I was going to move to Wellington before I got married because I had a lot of friends down there. Yeah. And so when they closed the branch in Tauranga, there were options of going to Auckland or going to Wellington. And for me, it was a no-brainer. It's like going to Wellington. I always wanted to go there. And so went to Wellington, was there for 3 months, and then got seconded into head office as a business analyst, and really liked that. And so I enjoyed that part of the role. That's where I kind of got into leadership a little bit. I ended up looking after a team. Ended up having 3 roles by the time I left, which wasn't great, but I never got any training. This is the interesting thing, right? It's like, oh, you can do this job, Andy. I'll put you in charge of these people. And it's like, I don't know how to lead these people. And so it's crazy, right? But this is what happens. Yeah. And what was interesting is I was there for a few years, and then I got bored. Yeah, I'd kind of had my time, and I came back from a holiday. I had a month off one Christmas, came back from holiday. 2 weeks into it, it's like, I need another holiday. Right? How many know that's time to leave, right? When it's like that. Whereas a year before, I was excited to come back to work from holiday. I was refreshed and going home. And interesting enough, 2 months after that, they made my role redundant.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And so...
I know what that's like.
You do, right? Well, I look back as a blessing. But what was interesting about that was I applied for another job in another team in the organisation. And then the guy that interviewed me rang me back. He said, Andy, you've got the job, but I get the feeling you're not sure about it. And so I said, I have a thing, I'll come back to you. And so I went home and talked to my wife and go, if I take this job, I'm going to be stuck in a rut for another 10 years. Right? And it's like, I think I need to leave. Yeah. So I exercised my right for the redundancy, which kind of shocked my boss, right? which I found interesting.
What do you think it shocked him?
Well, he's making you redundant, and then you say, actually, I'm going to take the redundancy.
Oh, right.
Right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, wasn't expecting that.
He wasn't expecting, yeah.
Right? And it was interesting how many people were interested in my welfare from then in management because I was leaving.
Mm.
And so I decided I wasn't going to do anything for 3 months. And what was interesting was people would come up to me and they go, oh, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I go, I'm not going to do anything for 3 months. But it's like, I've got a redundancy, it's going to last me a while. I'm not going to think about work, think about doing anything. I'm just going to take some time off and assess.
Yep.
And that surprised people, right? And then they said, some would say, I wish I could do that. I go, well, you can. It's just a decision.
It's a decision.
Right?
It's a choice, right?
It's a choice.
Yeah.
But we're stuck in the security, right, of the job and the things. And yes, it's important.
Yeah.
But maybe that's the first time I really started living outside my comfort zone. I don't know.
Well, that's how we've been taught, right? Where you get you leave school, you get a job, and it's funny because I was talking to David Neath and he said, job is just over broke.
Yep.
Yeah,
exactly. So I took the rest of that year off, and what was interesting, I was looking at a facility to turn into a sports training thing because I was I was playing rugby. I started playing rugby again. I'd had a break, and then I came back to it. And then after a year, my wife decided I needed to do something, and she found me a course at a local polytech, a brand new course, a sport and coaching diploma.
Wow.
I go, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So I did that. So I went back to school for 2 years, and I mentioned earlier I was a bit average at school. I love this. Like,
it's my passion, right?
Right. The assignments I found easy. I actually learned how to write essays, and it was like, wish I'd known this at school. But I found the study easy. I loved everything about it because I was passionate about the subject.
Yeah. And like the school system back then maybe it was okay for the time, but nowadays, what kids are taught in school it's like, I'm not sure whether that's, and every child is different.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was different. And so we went back to school. Then I started coaching. And then I had an opportunity to go overseas and coach rugby, and got a job in Canada.
Wow.
And so it was not full time, like it was not professional, but semi-professional. So I had to work there as well. And so took the family. Kids were 6, 9, and 11, I think. Packed up and went to Canada for 2.5 years, and just had a ball. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah. Get out of your comfort zone and
out of your comfort zone.
And on the other side of your comfort zone is all the amazing stuff, right?
Yeah. And people would say, what if it doesn't work?
What if it does?
What if it does?
Yeah.
But see, we burned our bridges. We bought a one-way ticket.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We had no option to come home. That wasn't an option for us.
Yeah.
It's like we're going, and interesting enough, this is a story for another time, but it all turned to custard, and so we had to make it work. And I won't go into that, but that's actually another good mindset.
It's like
talk,
it's like the captain of the ships. They land on some island, and he says, "Burn the ships," because there is no plan B.
Yes,
we're staying. We're fighting.
Yes, right. And when you do that, we're going to talk about leadership and mindset, right? When you do that, you find solutions, right? Because you're in that mindset that we have to make this work. What are our options? What can we do? And they appear.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas if you have something to fall back on, I think you miss those opportunities sometimes.
Yeah. It's interesting what you just shared, because, and thank you for sharing that, because for me, I was the same. I didn't really like school. At the age of 15, I failed miserably at school cert, left at 16 and started working. And again, like with redundancies, 24 of them, 24 restructures,
yes,
and 4 redundancies. And again, for me, it was like, I can't keep doing this. And also for me, it was like, I don't want to be on my deathbed looking back full of regret that I didn't give myself a chance. I didn't back myself.
Yep. Absolutely.
Mm.
And I was the same. I didn't want to die wondering. And it's like, I wish I'd given Canada a go,
Yeah.
right? And what's interesting about that, Anthony, is when I was, since about 15,
Mm.
that was one of my I didn't have a dream board, but that was a country I have always wanted to visit.
Wow.
And so 15 years later, I'm there.
It's there. Interesting what you feed your mind, your subconscious mind.
Yeah,
And you say it enough, it
Yeah.
will actually come to fruition.
absolutely.
Yeah.
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 So
So let's talk about what an athlete's mindset is and how it relates to leadership.
I like to use the word athlete's mindset because I think we can all relate to it,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
And so we all most people understand sport, and I know not everybody likes it, but we kind of get it. And so for me, the athlete mindset is about resilience,
Mm-hmm.
continuous improvement, and being calm under pressure,
Mm.
right? And so when we look at those things, then I think that's what I think about in terms of athlete's mindset.
Mm.
We look at athletes and see why they are successful. They're successful because they've built resilience,
Mm-hmm.
they have focus, and they know how to handle pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And so as leaders, we can adapt those same traits. We need to be resilient to the things around us because circumstances will throw us curveballs or stuff, and so we have to work through that adversity,
Mm.
and we have to continue to improve as people, right? We
Mm-hmm.
have to grow,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to, as leaders, there's going to be situations where we're going to have to make tough decisions,
Mm.
and so we have to be able to handle that and be able to stay calm when it's all turning to custard around, because the people that are following us, our team, they're looking to us for guidance, right? And if
We're
we
role
don't,
models, right?
and if we don't
Yeah.
have it together, right, they're going to fall apart.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so, what are the biggest mind shifts needed to go from managing tasks to leading people? I think a lot of leaders, or leaders as I would say with quotes, is that have been managers
Yep.
or have come from actually doing the technical work and then gone into management type thing roles without any training, as you talked about, right? So, what are the biggest mind shifts that are needed for leaders these days?
It's about people,
Mm.
not about systems and processes, because that's what management is, right?
Mm.
We get, they're kind of interchangeable, particularly in New Zealand, I think, and so we think manager is a leader, whereas in the true sense, or the technical term, it's not really.
Mm.
The way I look at management is about systems and processes. Leadership is about people. So I think the biggest shift is actually forgetting the system processes and focus on the people.
Some people, yeah,
First.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think that's where leaders who have been managers find it hard because they're still in that management mode
Yeah.
of micromanaging
Yes.
every single thing someone does,
Yep.
rather than empowering their people and trusting their people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was having a conversation yesterday
Mm.
with a guy training, and it's like, we've got to trust people to do the job.
Mm.
We're talking about delegation.
That's what they're hired for.
Right? That's what they're hired for. It's like,
Yeah.
but the saying is, what's the saying, right? If you want it done right, do it yourself, right?
Yeah.
But that's such an archaic
Yeah.
statement to make, because it doesn't help us.
No.
We just get bogged down and burnt out because we're trying to do everything ourselves because we don't trust anybody to do the job.
Yeah.
And so a mentor of mine, John Maxwell, used to always say that if you can find someone to do the job 80% as good as you, that's okay.
That's okay.
And I heard another guy, Craig Groeschel, actually would say 60%, and he's got a massive team.
Yeah.
And so I think we think people have to do it perfectly. They're never going to do it like us. If they start off and do it 80%, that's okay, because as they keep doing it, they'll get better.
Yeah.
Right? They'll get to 100%.
Progress over perfection.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And how do leaders cultivate a high performance mindset in leadership?
I think they have to be disciplined, they have to be focused and consistent in what they do. Right?
Yeah.
It's like tuning up to training, and they have to do things that they don't want to do. Right? Things that they don't feel like doing. I love the statement that action always precedes motivation. right? So if we wait till we feel like doing something, we'll never do it.
Yeah.
But motivation comes. So to develop a champion mindset, we've got to, if we look at the athlete, they do things, they turn up to training when it's wet and it's raining, they do the boring stuff,
Yeah.
right? They do the simple nuts and bolts of catch, pass, and run.
Yeah.
And leadership is no different, right? It's doing the basics well over and over again.
Yeah.
And it was interesting when I was coaching. The guys would always like to do the fancy moves, right? And try and be the hero or look great. But it's like that stuff happens on its own. It comes as a result of doing the basics well. And so as a leader, if we can do the basics well of valuing people, empowering them, and doing that stuff, then that makes it things. And so the mindset, being disciplined, saying what you're going to do, what you're going to say, integrity, having character, being ethical, those things.
Absolutely. Yeah, and when you consistently show up and you do those small things, that has a compounding effect.
Yep.
And also, to success is being consistent.
Definitely.
And motivation comes through the action that we take.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't just sit there and wait for motivation to come, because it won't.
It will never come, right? We've got to take emotion out of our decision making.
Yeah.
Because if we're ruled by our emotions, we'll be all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you say a lot of people are fearful in leadership?
Yes. I think they're fearful of what other people will think. They often perhaps want to be a people pleaser, so they want to please everyone, so they don't want to make a tough decision that's going to potentially upset someone or disrupt the environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think there is a lot of fear driven rather than backing themselves.
Yeah. And I want to say the word ego, which is quite commonly used.
Yeah.
But I just want to say that ego is not a bad thing. Ego is actually something, it's part of who you are as a human. But there is good ego, and then there's ego that's the opposite of the good, which is where it's all about you and how you are perceived by other people.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because as a leader, you've got to let ego go. Now, we need ego to perform, right? And so there is a good ego and a bad ego.
Yeah. What
we see in leadership is often a bad ego. As you said, it's all about us. And as a leader, you've got to let that go, because it's all about people.
It's about the team.
Right, it's about the team, and it's about serving them, and it's about helping them become the best employees they can.
Yeah.
What's interesting about the ego thing is we have this ego because we want to look good, right, in front of everybody and things. When we let that go, the team will make us look good, right? So we don't need the ego. We just need to invest in our team, empower them, and they will naturally make us look good.
Yep, absolutely.
Right?
I agree with you. Yeah. The traditional way of leadership has been the leader at the top and the people down the bottom. But I think, there's many illustrations that have been done with the triangle where basically the leader is lifting the people up. I've always been that kind of person where I want to empower others to be great and to be amazing, so that they, and in turn, I will get the credit and the credibility or recognition and stuff. But it's not something that, as a leader, that I should be chasing. It's more about empowering the people. And in a rugby game, if the captain was doing everything himself and wasn't playing with the team, then it's going to be a completely different outcome, opposed to working as a team.
Absolutely.
And empowering people to take chances and to be able to take the risks, within reason. Yeah. Why do many professionals struggle with this transition, and how can they overcome it? So the transition from going from like manager to leader, and also why do they find it such a struggle to empower their people and
I think they struggle, one, because they don't have a growth mindset. They get the pay rise, but they don't understand that there's some skill involved in leading, and they don't have an open mindset to grow and figure out how to do this. Because what happens is our default mechanism, our default leadership style is what we've learnt or what we've been under, right? And so what I often talk about in my courses is that these 5 levels of leadership, and the first one is position. So we lead by authority or the title that we've been given. And so most people, when they make that transition, that's how they start. They lead because I have the title, you will do what I say, right? And that's where it stops. Not a great way to build culture or trust in the team, right? And so I think they struggle to make that transition, and so they don't grow, they don't learn the skills, they don't have accountability, and they don't seek feedback from other people, right? And we all need a coach, right? Sport, we all need a coach. And so when we're in leadership, we need a personal coach.
Absolutely.
We need someone to help us,
Absolutely.
right? Who's further ahead in the game.
Yeah.
And they don't have to be that far ahead, just a few steps.
A few steps ahead of you.
A few years of experience. And I think that would make a big difference.
Because, there's that saying, we know what we know, or we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
And having a coach or a mentor guide us along that journey of leadership is going to be helpful. And as I say, you're only the sum of the people that you hang out with, right? So, so if you hang out with good coaches and mentors and people that are going to help you grow, then you're going to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's go to the next question. How did your experience as a rugby coach shape your approach to leadership?
Success in rugby or any sport, but we're talking rugby because that's my thing. It's not just about having the best players on the team. It's about creating an environment where there's trust. People know their strengths and they know what their position is. And so I think those things, it taught me how to bring out the best in people. It taught me how to keep calm under pressure, right? In a game that's really tight, how do you keep calm? How do the players keep calm? And so making tough decisions too when you have to, right? As a coach, you had to cut some players at times. That's really difficult, right? And when we equate that to leadership, having to have a difficult conversation because of a performance issue or some behavior that we've allowed to continue can be tough. And so what I often coin the phrase that, coaching rugby and leadership is exactly the same. It's just a different ball. Right? Same skills. Different.
In a different environment. Yeah. Absolutely. How can team dynamics, discipline, and mindset influence success in both of these fields?
If you don't create a culture or an environment where the team is getting on and they trust each other, then it's not going to work. We're going to fail miserably because everybody's doing their own thing. And the problem when you have a team of individuals is they're a team of individuals. They're all doing their own thing. And so you won't get any unity. And as a result, productivity fails or is lacking. Engagement disappears. No one's talking to each other. And so you've got to have this team dynamic where everybody's gelling and on the same page. Another phrase I like to use, a quote that I've created is, every team starts off as individuals. Only the best become one. Right? And so as a leader and as a coach, taking a bunch of individuals and turning them into one unit. Right? And when we do that, then magic happens.
Absolutely. What would you say are some of the key traits of an elite athlete that leaders could adopt?
We can talk about this. Resilience, discipline, coachability, and focus. Right? So resilience is developing this toughness from experience. We only get resilience from adversity, from failing. Right? And it's the only way you'll get it. And the problem we have, I think today, there's a lack of resilience in the world because people give up too easily and they're not willing to push through. Like how many redundancies you've had, right? You've come back.
24 restructures and 4
Right?
redundancies.
So you've come back, right, from that. And
Absolutely.
that creates a resilience.
And
in
I'm
us.
stronger every single time.
Absolutely, right? But if we give up, we don't develop that.
Yeah.
And so on the rugby field, you're failing every minute because you're getting tackled, and then you get up, you get tackled again, getting up. This is all developing resilience, right? Because we're getting up. You don't stay down on the ground because that's not serving anything.
No,
and
you want to be moving forward, and not stagnant. So the more you keep moving, and the adversities that come in our life, they're there to test us. They're there to push us forward, propel us forward, right?
Yes.
And the thing is, as I say, you get knocked down, you bounce back. You don't want to bounce back. I would say you want to bounce forward, right? So the more you lean into your fear, the more you lean into the things that are limiting you, limiting beliefs, the more you lean into those things, and the more you work through that, you have the opportunity to become limitless.
Yeah. Fail forward.
Fail forward.
Right.
Fail fast.
And fast.
Yeah.
Fail forward and fail
often.
fast.
And often.
Right? Yeah. And so resilience is a big thing. Discipline is really important as a leader when we look at athletes, like showing up, being consistent. Worst thing you can do is be inconsistent as a leader with your team, right? If you say you're going to have a meeting, then you cancel it. And actually, my daughter's in this situation at the moment where a leader in the organisation just keeps cancelling meetings. And so they don't know who's going to show up when they talk to this person, right? Because they're so inconsistent with the way they lead, as it's like getting whiplash. Right? So you've got to be disciplined. You've got to show up. You've got to do what you say you're going to do. People think discipline's a bad word or it's a negative word. It's not. Discipline's your friend, right? And structure is your friend.
It is, yeah. And I would say fear is also a friend as well.
Yeah.
Because the more you lean into fear, fear's giving you feedback.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think personally, I think that there's a need for leaders to be courageous.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yep, not be afraid to. See, as a leader,
challenge.
You've got to be. This is why we talked about before, taking emotion out of decision making, right? Make the decision based on facts and what's going on. Because as soon as we let emotion, then we let fear overtake us, right? And so we have to be courageous and make tough decisions. It's a lot easier when we remove the emotion out of it. And it's not that you're going to be callous and mean, but it does make it easier.
Yeah.
We talk about coachability, right? Being teachable. And so being open to having feedback, because we don't always get it right and we make mistakes as leaders, just like coaches make mistakes at times, right? And so being open to feedback and being coachable, and then being focused under pressure, right? Staying composed when those big moments happen, or a leader should always be able to see a lot further ahead than the team, right? And if they're looking forward, then they can see what's going to happen before the players. So as a coach on the field, I'm standing on the sideline, I'm watching like a bird's eye view of the game. I can see what's going to happen before the players do. So like halftime, I can give them feedback and things. And so a good leader does that. They see what's...
Well, they're creating the vision. They're the visionary. They're the ones that are coming up with the big ideas and the way forward. And the team will automatically buy into that if they trust the leader enough.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
And trust is the fundamental foundational step.
Yep.
Like within the 5 levels of leadership, trust is the first step. As a leader, you've got to be courageous and you've got to be able to challenge even with other leaders, and then be able to share that vision in a constructive way that's going to then, people will not push things away if they're presented in a way that is constructive and collaborative as well. Yeah, I think collaboration is another big thing that is important.
Huge thing. I think leaders, one of the things we lack is hearty discussion. Even if you're a team of leaders, let's not be yes people and try and people please. Let's have a robust, hard discussion and then make the right decision or the best idea wins. It's
Yeah.
not like my idea has to win. As a leader,
Yeah.
it's like the best idea in the room is the one that wins. It doesn't matter who it comes from,
Yeah.
right? And we're not, and I think we're afraid to upset people or hurt people's feelings when we should be able to have robust
Yeah.
discussions and have moments of disagreement or not agreeing with that opinion. And that's okay because they're opinions. We don't have to agree with everything, but we can discuss them and then we can make
Yeah.
decisions. So,
Yeah. In my experience in about 30 years of being in corporate world, one of the things I've noticed is that, especially in the middle management, there is some challenges there where, like you talked about, people pleasing and not really standing up for your team because they're scared of the management above, like
Yep.
the GM level and above. What's your take on that?
It starts from the top, right? So the reason they feel like this pressure coming from the top or thing is because it's coming from the top, right? Whereas if their manager above them empowered them, then they'd be able to empower their team. And so it happens a trickle down effect, right?
Yeah.
The head always rots from the fish always rots from the head up.
From the head up, yeah.
Right? The same in organizations. And so middle management find it tough because their managers are either not available or not approachable, and they're not really empowering them to make decisions or do things for their team.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They're not giving them the skills to lead properly.
Yeah. And the traits we talked about before, would you say that mindset is kind of like the foundation of all of that?
Absolutely. If you don't have mindset's everything. If you don't have the right mindset going into something, it's going to come unstuck pretty quickly, right? So we have to, like every day, we need to wake up and have the right mindset, the right attitude of how we're going to approach the day, despite what gets thrown at us, because we're going to have to fight some fires and we're going to have to make some tough decisions. But having the right mindset makes that a lot easier because we're in the right frame of mind and we're approaching it from the right angle.
Exactly. Yeah. So how can leaders develop the mental resilience in high pressure situations?
They need to practice. Like I call it, what's the word here? Controlled adversity. So put ourselves in situations where there's small challenges where where it's controlled. Or let me put it another way. Two things: visualization and thinking about these things that could happen in an environment at work. Like, let me give the sports example, coaching rugby. I was one year we were coaching and we created these pressure situations for the whole season. Like the team is, we would say to them, this is where you are on the field and you're 5 points down. There's 7 minutes to go, and then we'd let them run a play. And then we would stop and we'd discuss about why did you make that decision, what was, and there was no wrong answer. We wanted to think is get them to think about what they were doing. Then we'd go to another place on the field and say, here's the situation, here's the score, here's the time left, let them run a play. We did that whole season. So what we were doing is having this controlled adversity and putting pressure on them and letting them make decisions.
Yeah.
And then over time, they were making good and great decisions.
Great decisions, yeah.
Right? So what happened, fast forward, end of the season, we finished number 4 in the competition. So semi-finals, we were playing the number 1 team that finished 1. 10 minutes to go, we were 3 points up. The team shut the game down. They held onto the ball, kept it in the forwards, and it was like a pick and go. And so when the ref said use it, a forward would pick it up, just run forward, get tackled, and then the team would hold it until the ref said use it. And did that for 10 minutes.
Wow.
So opposition couldn't get the ball.
Yeah.
There was no need to run it out the backs and score. We were already ahead.
Yeah.
It was a really tight game. And so because we trained all season for that moment, when it became this high pressure situation, they knew exactly what to do because they'd practiced it.
Yeah.
And we talked about it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Had we not done that, they might have tried to score and things and then turn the ball over. Opposition would have got it and scored it. And so that's how you can do that, by practicing and visualizing what could happen, what the situation might be like having a difficult conversation. Think about that before you go in. Like, what is the outcome I want? what could happen. What if it goes pear-shaped? How can I get it back on track? How can I make sure that everybody feels heard, seen, and things, right? And so practicing mentally
Yeah.
and visually of these situations, I think is key, because
Yeah.
that will make a big difference. Because then you're not surprised, right? Because you go in and then something happens, you go, oh, I've thought about this, or
Yeah.
I've expected this to happen, and so you know how to handle it.
It's about being intentional, right? And it's
Yeah.
about, like I said, visualization, but also putting that intention that this is what this is what I want,
Yep.
and it may or may not go this way, but am
Yeah.
I prepared enough to be able to handle either situation?
Preparation, right?
Preparation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
And what about communication? I mean, communication is something that I feel is lacks in a lot of leadership space. Why is mastering communication so important?
Communication is everything as well, because if we don't learn how to communicate, then this is why there's so many misunderstandings, or people don't get what's being communicated, or they're not doing their job because they don't understand. And so a couple of things with communication. We do work on a communication assessment tool called DISC, DISC. Some people might be familiar with it. And so that's about learning your communication style. And what happens is often we're talking our communication style to someone that has a different style, and we wonder why there's no connection, right? Because we're talking two different languages. And so as a leader, if we can understand what our communication style and quickly identify what other people are, we're more likely to then be able to communicate in a way that both understand each other and things. And so it's a skill that can be learned, right? And it's more than just communication, is also more than just words.
Yeah.
Right? There's a percentage that people hear 7% of what we say. The rest, the other 93%, is body tone and body language. And so they read your body language and they read the tone that you say things in more than the words you actually say.
Yeah.
So, we all know, for those that have got kids, right, the dad look. And we talk to our kids, right? You don't have to say anything, but you just need to look at your kids if they've done something wrong, and they know that they would have rather you said something, because the look is way more threatening, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember my grandfather. He just had to look at us, and
it
was like,
right. So communication is really, really important, and I think we need to learn that skill. We don't have it naturally.
No.
There's people that are naturally people, and they connect well with people, but it's a skill that we have to learn.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to communicate, to understand and be understood, and also listen to be understood.
Yeah. So what I used to do when I was coaching rugby is, if I was explaining a drill, I'd explain the drill, and then I would get the players to repeat it back to me, so that I knew they understood what I was saying.
Yeah.
And if they didn't, then we could clarify it.
Yeah.
And so I think communication is a two-way street, right?
So
we talk, then what did you hear? Oh, this is what I heard you say.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I haven't been that articulate. I need to. John Maxwell, coach, always used to say, he's written a lot of books, and but he would always say, talk or write in a way that a 12-year-old could understand.
Yeah.
Right. And I think we need to do that with communication.
Yeah.
Speak so that a child will understand it, because then we know. Yeah. So I think you've got to get clarity around when you're communicating. Give the opportunity for the other person to repeat it back or ask questions, so that when you leave that situation, both parties are clear of what's being communicated.
Yeah, absolutely. And like when I started my coaching journey, there's a saying about the map is not the territory. Everyone, you give someone a map, or give 5 people a map, and they'll have different perceptions of how to get wherever they're going.
Yep.
And so often in organizations and teams, a leader will say something expecting everyone to understand what he has said or she has said. Every one of those people in the team may take it a different way or understand it in a different way.
Yeah.
How do we get past that?
So you have to understand people's perspective, right, and ask for it. It's like another analogy I use is, the coloured beach ball, right? I was standing here, I can see blue, green, and yellow. Person over there sees red, green and orange,
Orange, yeah,
right? Same ball, but we're seeing different
different,
perspectives.
yeah,
So I think we need to try and understand what their perspective is, right? And so come back to difficult conversations. So I think when we go in and have a difficult conversation, let's get their perspective on the situation first before we launch into correction or whatever it might be, right?
Yeah.
Because it might highlight something that we've never thought of. And that's why perspective is great. In a team, diverse perspectives are fantastic.
Yeah.
And if we can learn to encompass them and embrace different perspectives in a team setting, because everybody has some unique thing to offer, right? And often it's something we haven't thought of.
Yeah.
And so find out what the perspective is first before you make a decision.
Yeah, and it challenges you to see different perspectives and understand what other people are thinking and feeling.
Interesting. I heard another saying that when you're in a meeting, the leader should always speak last.
Simon Sinek.
Right. So let everybody share their perspective.
Yeah.
Then you speak, because it's like there'll be some revelation that comes out of that.
It also helps other people feel heard.
Yeah.
And they're putting their perspective across, and people are listening to them.
Yeah. I used to do that with coaching. At halftime, I would never tell the players what to do. I would always, first question is,
what do you think?
What do you think? What's going on out there? What's going well? What's not working so well? Okay, what do we need to do? What do we need to focus on? Because they know the answer, right? I didn't have to tell them.
Yeah.
And then I might just say, okay, and we used to often have a couple of key words that would help them refocus. The players, they would have a word, and it's like, okay, it might be tackle.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's your word, just focus on tackle. That's your job. This game is just to tackle.
Yeah.
And so, you can create some keywords to bring focus back and things, but always perspective, because I found that the players knew what to do.
Yeah.
And if I let them talk, you got buy-in.
Yeah.
Right? They took ownership of it. Whereas if I was telling them what to do, they're not really taking ownership.
No.
Yeah.
There's a guy who was a commander of a submarine. His first name is David. I can't remember the last name. He never commanded this submarine before, and the first thing he did is he said to his crew, he said, "You tell me what to do." And they're like, "No, you got to give us a command." And he goes, "No, I've never been in this submarine before." And he turned it around with the team, the actual crew were leading, and he would ask them questions on what to do and when to do it.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. Great point, because often as leaders we think we need to know all the answers, right?
Yeah.
Not the case, right? And this thing, when you look at CEOs that go from company to company, they don't always necessarily know the industry. The goal of a leader is to have the right people around you, right? To have the expertise. So your job is to help them do their job as best as they can.
Yeah.
And as a coach, have the best players in the best position so that they can perform and gel as a team and work. So I think as leaders, we sometimes think we have to know everything. We don't have to know anything. We just know how to manage, how to lead people, right?
And if you've come from a technical or a doing background, and then you've worked up the level, you've got to learn to let go.
Yes.
As well.
Yep.
And it's like any entrepreneur who started, like me, like I'm doing the podcasting, I'm doing the editing, I'm doing everything, right? But at some point, I will hire someone who does video editing, and I'll step away from it. A virtual assistant that does things for me, and then, but that's the journey of entrepreneurship. And I think this is where leaders can learn from entrepreneurs, where learn to let go of the things that you don't do anymore, and empower others to do those even better.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. We often do find it hard to let things go, right? It's control, right? We're afraid of letting go control. But when you let go control, because our biggest handicap is ourselves.
Yeah.
The bottleneck is ourselves, right?
Ourselves,
Yep. And so we're the ones that will cause our team not to flourish or move forward. And so when we empower them to do that, then we can leverage what we do.
Yeah.
And so like letting go is delegation, right? There's a thing as a leader, if there's something only you can do, then you should do it. But if it's something someone else can do, then you should delegate it. Right?
Yeah.
And
also, if there's something that you can do that others could do, systemize it so that train them so that others can take it on.
And if they
And
do
it
it
releases
80%,
you. Yeah.
that's okay,
Mm.
right? And it does release, because what happens is, problem a lot of leaders do is like they don't have time to train, right? They think they don't have time to train. And it's like, if you spend time at the front end training someone to do a task, yes, it might be only 80% to start with. That's okay. And it might take a little bit more of your time. The payoff at the other end is massive, right? Because you get back all this time and you don't have to worry about it. So it's worth the investment at the front end to gain the back end.
Yeah, and
right?
I think that's absolutely right. But I think and I think that there's that Pareto rule, where the 80-20 rule, where you really want to be doing the 20%, because the 20% is going to create the impact.
Yes.
That
20% gives you 80%
80% of the return, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yep.
Thank you for that.
Agreed.
Let's talk about discipline. What role does discipline and consistency play? We've already covered this, but do you want to touch on that?
Yeah. Talent's not enough.
No.
Right?
It's talent is something that you can learn, right?
Yeah. So, discipline's what really separates the top performers from the rest. Right? When we look at the All Blacks, when we look at the Olympians, right? Why are they at the top of the thing? Because they discipline their lives to training, to eating well, to sleep, to all these things. And that's why they're the best. And so in leadership, it's the same. Discipline creates consistency. Discipline helps build trust in your team, and discipline helps set the tone for the environment, the culture. Right? When we lack discipline as a leader, then we lose that stuff. We lose trust. We lose culture in the industry. You can lose culture just like that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
By being inconsistent.
Yeah.
And I've seen it happen in one of my child's companies she was working at. Her manager had built culture, massive. New manager came in, new leader came in, and in like 3 or 4 months, culture had started to disappear because she was inconsistent.
Yeah.
Not turning up, not doing things that she should have been doing with her team. And so discipline is vital.
Yeah.
I think in leadership, discipline's our friend. Structure is our friend.
Yeah.
Right? It gives us freedom.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. How can leaders create a winning culture in their teams? And what is the importance of resilience and adaptability under that pressure?
How to create a winning culture? It's about behavior. It's not about slogans or posters on a wall.
No.
Right? They're great to have, and the values on the wall, I think companies should have that so people know what they are. But it's not about that. It's about the actual behavior within an organization. That's what really creates a winning culture, right? When we are performing and behaving in a way that aligns with that slogan.
How are we showing up?
Because it's all we're having a slogan, but if no one's living by it.
Well, I've seen that. I've seen that a lot, where businesses have these amazing values, and one of them that really gets me is speak up. And when you do speak up,
you get
shut down.
Exactly, right? And so the company's not living by they're not acting like their values are saying. And so for me, behavior and action is way more important than what you have written on the wall.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think I feel that if a leader leads by those values and by those behaviors, then the people will follow. People will.
They've got to lead by example, right?
Yeah.
All the time, and it starts with them. If they don't see their leader doing it, why should I do it? Right? And so it's so important that leaders show the way forward. And this is what I am saddened with when it comes to celebrities and athletes, that they're role models for, and they have so much influence, and yet they go and do something stupid, and they destroy all the credibility they've had and the influence they have with people, right? Because they don't understand it. They've got an opportunity to change the world by the way they live, right? And whether they let power and stuff go to their head, I don't know. So leadership's the same, right? We've got to lead by example. We've got to be the thing that people aspire to.
Yeah.
And it's like, I want to be like him.
Yeah.
Or I want to be like her.
I feel that part of it is identity, how you see yourself.
Yeah.
and what your beliefs are and your
Yeah.
perspectives in your life.
Yeah.
And because if your beliefs and your minds, and like your mindset and your beliefs, what you believe about yourself, then will shape how you see how you identify yourself, right?
Yeah.
And you know, just because some of these people are rich and they've made it successful, a lot of those people are struggling. I mean, Robin Williams is an example who was so successful in comedy, but you know, he wasn't happy.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so how many of these celebrities have, you know, ended their lives because they weren't happy? There were
Yeah.
things going on,
Yes.
and this is it. We're human beings. Every one of us has got things going on,
Yep.
but it's what do we believe about ourselves, and how do we identify ourselves? You know, if we understood what our vision was, if we understood what our identity was, and we understood what our values and beliefs were, most of the problems that we would go away.
Yep. And I think, Anthony, that often people don't understand why they're here, what their purpose is, right? There's a saying that
Agree.
2 important days in a person's life: the day they're born, and the day when they understand the reason why they were born, right?
Yeah.
And I think people lack purpose or don't know why they're here. They've got talent, they've got things, but they still don't understand what their purpose is. And when we can understand why we're here, that changes everything, right?
Well,
That
it's
gives
like
us the self-belief, that gives us the things to be able to do and make an impact in the world.
that's right. I mean, it's like a well-tuned engine going forward rather than one that's not well-tuned and it's misfiring and you know, farting and doing all sorts of stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
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 Firing on all 4 cylinders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. What's some practical strategies that leaders could start using today?
I reckon, I wouldn't say it's the number one. I reckon a great strategy a leader can do is meet with their direct reports every single week for 5 or 10 minutes and ask 3 questions. What did you enjoy about last week? What are you working on this week? And how can I help you do your job better this week?
Yeah.
What do you need from me?
Yeah.
Right? I think if leaders did that simple strategy, it's a game changer. Because then the people go, wow, I did this exercise with a group, and that was a goal. They had to go in and bring their staff in and ask these questions. And it absolutely floored them, because it's like no one's ever asked them that before. What can I do to help you do your job better? Because that's what a leader's supposed to do, right? Empower their people to be the best at their job. And so I think as a strategy, that's a simple thing to do. And you don't do it in a team meeting. It's an individual one-on-one catch-up every single week for 5 minutes. And that will change your leadership.
Yeah. What's something a daily habit to help managers lead with confidence?
Work on self. Read biographies, not just personal development. Read biographies. Read how other leaders led. They're fantastic, and they're so interesting. And I think the more you work on yourself and become a better person, the more confidence you'll have as a leader.
Before we go into the quick-fire questions, Andy, if people have resonated with what you've shared today, and leaders would like to connect with you, how can they get hold of you? And what courses or what have you got on offer at the moment that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I'd love to. So they can get hold of me at andy@andyrolston.com. That's my email. Or andyrolston.com will take you to our website. I have a program that I run at the moment called Manager to Leader. And it's taking the manager from technical to leading people. That's why I've called it Manager to Leader. I'm bridging the gap. There's lots of courses out there that teach leaders or managers how to manage, you know, priorities, time management, all this sort of stuff.
There's no transitional.
I'm more interested in the person, right? And so this program is designed to help managers to move that, help them build trust, help them become a skilled communicator, and then help them lead with confidence. And so that's what the program is really about. And so I get excited every time I teach that and seeing people move from just managing to actually leading. And so that's the main program. We do DISC as well, and so that's one of the things I do in my programs is we do this DISC assessment to find out what your communication style is, because communication is part of being a skilled communicator. And when we can communicate well and understand other people, that makes a big difference.
Absolutely.
And so it's a great program and you don't even need to be a leader to go through that, right?
No.
It can be just you want to. Because here's the thing, when we invest in people before they're in a management position or a leadership position, when we train them there and then they get the promotion, then they've got the skills to lead.
Yeah.
And too often we've promoted the guy and then it's like they're out of their depth and then we need to train them. We need to train them before they get promoted.
It should be almost like we're going to promote you, but we're going to send you on a course and going to invest in you first, and then you're going to have all the tools in your toolkit.
Yep.
To help
Much
you
easier to do it that way.
Yeah.
But I'm also great at doing it the other way, right? And when people they need help, they're out of their depth and think, I need some leadership training.
Yeah, and so, I think there's value in, even when you're on that journey, that just because you've done a course doesn't mean that you're going to be smooth sailing. But it's like at any point given time, you might need some mentorship or some coaching.
Yeah.
That you've got.
It's a journey, and I think what I like about the program I've created is it's very practical. So it's about real world situations that you're experiencing in your workplace. I'm not just teaching theoretical stuff. It's what's a problem you have? Let's solve it. And so there's exercises, action points for you to practice what we are learning, because it's all very well having knowledge, but if it's not being applied, then it's just knowledge. And so for me, it's about practicality, and I will give you the skills for you to practice these, and then we will discuss them and talk about it.
Yeah. And you're there on the journey to guide them through that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Awesome. We'll put those links into the show notes of the podcast. And I believe your wife also works with you as well.
She does. Yeah, we're partners in crime.
Yeah. How's that, having a relationship but also then working together?
Taken me 30 years to work with my wife, Anthony. I couldn't have done it then. We would have killed each other. It has taken a long time to get to that point, right? Because not every couple can work together. Personal growth and development as well. I think we complement each other. So we work in the same space. My wife does the disc. She's more communication and does things with culture. She's so good at that. And I focus on the leadership. And so we kind of work together and bounce off each other. And so it really works well together, doing it that way, where we can use each other's skills to leverage our business.
Absolutely. You complement each other.
Yeah, we do.
Let's kick into some quick fire questions. So you could choose to answer this question with a single word or a single sentence.
Yep. No qualification.
Sorry?
No qualification.
No qualifications. Okay. No. So first question is, how do you define success, and has that definition changed for you over time?
Success for me has always been about being present with my family and being there for their sports games, the ballet, at home. I don't think it's changed. I think it's always been that. I haven't always got it right, but that's what success for me is.
Like we just said, it's a journey, right?
Yeah.
Who's been your greatest inspiration and why?
The people I coach. Now, I could have had lots of people. The people I coach and train, because what inspires me about them is when I see the growth and I see those light bulb moments. I've got goosebumps now talking about it. That's what inspires me to do what I do. Yeah.
It's such a proud moment when the people you coach are progressing and doing amazing things.
Yeah, they're my inspiration.
Yeah. What's something that you believe that others may disagree with?
I don't believe in the open door policy as a leader.
Why is that?
I believe you need to be available and approachable, but to have your door always open is not productive. And I think as a leader, there are times where you need focus, concentrated time without disruptions. And so the open door policy doesn't work, because you can't do that if you're interrupted all the time.
Book in a time. Let's have a chat.
Book in a time.
Yeah.
When the door's closed, don't interrupt me.
Yeah. It's about priorities, right?
About priority and boundaries.
Boundaries.
So I do believe in an open door, but not all the time.
Yeah. If you could go back and give young Andy a bit of advice, what would that be?
Don't be afraid to live outside your comfort zone. Take risks. Fail lots.
Yeah.
Fail forward. Fail fast. Fail many times.
Because what's on the other side of your comfort zone? Your best version.
Your best version of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. What is one message you'd like to share with the world?
we're all born for a purpose,
Mhm.
and we get the opportunity to influence people in a positive way. And if we can do that, the ripple effect will affect generations. And so my vision is to help people become the best versions of themselves.
Mm. Awesome. And last question, what does it mean to you to be a champion and to have a champion mindset?
For me to be a champion is if I am better today than I was yesterday, I'm winning, because I'm competing against myself, not anybody
Anyone
else.
No.
The mindset, champion mindset, is my attitude, how I react to situations every day, how I choose to respond. That's the only thing I have control over in my emotions, is how I respond. And so for me, my champion mindset is how I respond to situation. It can all be going to custard, but if I've got the right attitude, then I'm going to find solutions.
Yeah.
I'm going to make progress. Doesn't necessarily make it all go away, but I'll be in a better place because of it. My mindset will be in a great position to be able to move forward.
Yeah, it's that saying, are you coming from a place of cause or effect?
Yeah.
And are you responding or are you reacting?
Or reacting, yeah.
Exactly,
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Andy, for joining us today on the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. It's been a pleasure. First time from the crate.
Yeah, it's kind of cool, isn't it?
It is cool, yeah. Interesting thing is, and this is something I'd like to share, is last year I was going, I would love to have a place where I could actually go and do in-person podcast episodes. And at that time, I didn't know Dean and the crate, but I just put that intention out there, and I just kept saying it over and over again. And even on podcast episodes, I'd say, one day I'm going to have this. And here we are.
Yeah.
I've got the ability to use this room to do podcasts or seminars and webinars. So if you've been watching this, and first of all, if you've been watching this, I'm so grateful that you've been watching and listening to this podcast. And I just want to say that if you have got something out of this, I'd love for you to share this episode with someone who may benefit from the insights that you've got, and they may have their own insights, and you may be able to help someone change their life. So please share this episode, subscribe and follow so that you don't miss any future episodes. And this will help build the community of the Champion Mindset Collective, and we can get this podcast out to the wider world. I just want to say, if you're looking for a space or be a guest on this podcast, reach out to me. There will be an email at the bottom of the show notes. Reach out to me. Add a comment. What did you get out of this podcast episode? What were the highlights for you? And connect with Andy and myself. I'll put our links into the show notes. Lastly, I just want to say you are loved and you are worthy, and champion your life, champion your greatness, and have an amazing day.